We're going on assignment with the Voice of America. Hey everybody, it's good to see you again. On Assignment is back and I'm Imran Siddiqui.
And I'm Alex Villarreal. We are coming to you from VOA headquarters in Washington, where the government shutdown certainly changed business as usual. Our national correspondent joins us to talk about the history of such closings.
Also on the show, how Skype is helping doctors in the U.S. aid surgeries in Syria.
The U.S. and Thailand get together to confront illegal wildlife trafficking.
And what's it like to be a woman in a society that separates you? Two new films explore that very question.
It's all coming your way on Assignment.
The war in Syria has killed more than 100,000 people. The conflict has also inflicted a heavy toll on medical facilities. A group of surgeons here in the U.S., through the Union of Syrian Medical Relief and the Syrian American Medical Society, is assisting with the increasing medical needs without ever entering an operating room in Syria.
Now, how do they do it? VOA's Carolyn Pursuti did exclusive reporting on the virtual surgeries, and she told me how they work, but we should warn you, this story contains some graphic images that may be difficult to watch. Carolyn, take us through this. How is it that a doctor in the United States is able to help with a surgery going on halfway across the world in Syria?
Okay, so say you're the doctor. You're totally wired, right? You're carrying your laptop with you. You're carrying your smartphone with you. You suddenly get a call on your smartphone. You get maybe a message through Facebook, maybe Twitter, and you realize that you're needed in surgery in Syria. So you get set up with your Skype, with your webcam, and that's exactly how the connection is made. They brief you, they tell you about the patient, they being the surgeons in Syria.
This patient will never know that his destiny lies in the expertise of a man 9,400 kilometers away. The 19-year-old took a bullet to the leg.
He hasn't been able to walk since.
Neither the surgeon nor a visiting British doctor in Syria has expertise in peripheral nerve damage. So in the midst of war, they are consulting via Skype with Dr. Abdelmajid Katranji, a hand surgeon in Michigan.
Now, when you have surgeons who are active in Syria, why is this kind of help from abroad necessary?
When a conflict occurs, it's not like you have a base of doctors that are well versed in shrapnel wounds, in combat type trauma, in bullet wounds. So that was the first problem. They just weren't trained with those methods. They're wonderful doctors over there in Syria, but they just didn't have that type of expertise. So that's one reason. So that's how the doctors from this country, through the SAMS Society, the Syrian American Medical Society, and through USAM, the Union for Syrian Medical Relief Organizations, they got together and decided that doctors in this country were going to help these Syrian doctors. So the second reason that the need is there is because of different types of expertise. If you're in a small field hospital in the hills, you may have an injury that you've never seen before, that you don't know how to treat because it's not your specialty. Whereas if you have the experience of the whole world at your hands, physicians from all over the whole world, of course you want to pull from that expertise and you want to ask them their advice.
Now, I imagine there has to be some difficulty involved, though. I mean, even when we do Skype interviews here and we're talking to someone abroad, we have connection issues. How do they have connection issues, and how do they work around that?
Absolutely, they do. In fact, when we were taping this segment of the 10-month-old baby that had the shrapnel wounds, the connection went down several times. So luckily, you still have surgeons on that end who can do other things while they're waiting for the connection to come through again. Or they can simply reconnect with another doctor in this country who has the expertise.
What is that like for you? What kinds of feelings does that bring out for you covering something like this?
Let me tell you a little bit about that 10-month-old, because this is the one that touched my heart. The 10-month-old was brought in the same day as the chemical attacks. She wasn't affected by the chemicals, but she was in a family car. They were fleeing the area because there was shelling after the chemical attack. So they were trying to get away from the shelling, right? Her car gets bombed and her entire family is gone. She has no living relatives. She's brought into the hospital and they're out of cotton. They're out of any splints. So they They break off a metal leg to a hospital bed, and they use that as a splint for her broken arm.
As people hear all the political noise, they really have to eliminate it and start looking at the human equation. What's the human equation here? You just heard a doctor who said he doesn't look at people's ID badges. He just needs to be able to deliver care and to be able to deliver care safely.
What do you hope that people take away from this story?
I think, you look at this story and it makes you feel insignificant in this world, that there's so much going on. And even take apart, this is Syria, right? But in the whole world in general, there's so much that we can do. And now that we have the technology to do it, each of us can really make a difference. There's really no excuse for us not to. I mean, somebody thought about doing this. Somebody said, we have Skype. We can do this with a webcam. And they did it, and they do it on a regular basis now. It's just, if you have one thought, you can carry that on to do great things. And certainly these doctors are doing that. And the fact that they don't look at the identification tags of the people that come into their hospital, they don't care whose side that injured person is, they still give them treatment. I think that says a lot about mankind, about humanity.
VOA's Carolyn Pursuti. We should mention that the Doctors of SAMS, the Syrian American Medical Society, are all working for these patients for free.
We're taking a break now. On the other side, the U.S. government shut itself down this year, but it's certainly not the first time that's happened. You're watching On Assignment. After the U.S. Congress could not agree on a budget deal to fund the government past October 1st, many federal functions came to a grinding halt. The partial government shutdown even affected operations here at the Voice of America, including our own show. But 2013 was certainly not the first time the U.S. government shut down. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone is here to talk about that. Jim, you can remember what happened in the past. How do you compare the 2013 shutdown to the ones in the past?
They're pretty different. I mean, in the last shutdown about 17 years ago, the president was Bill Clinton, the House Speaker, Republican Newt Gingrich. They actually were talking throughout much of the shutdown period. It lasted about 3 or 4 weeks. Eventually, people came back. The disagreements were over the budget, not that dissimilar from what it is now. But I think the politics of what we're seeing now in the country is a lot different. Both sides now are much more dug in than they were 17 years ago.
Do you think this was a long time coming?
I do. I think this partisanship, this polarization in the United States has been building for decades, really since the 1980s. And with the advent of the Tea Party movement a few years ago, when President Obama came into office, all bets are off now. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the Tea Party came in with a simple pledge: no more business as usual, no more compromise. And particularly this was directed at Republicans in Congress whom they felt under George W. Bush were too willing to compromise. So the whole backlash here is, we don't like the debt, we don't like too much government spending, we don't like too much government. It's about the size of government. That's why the health care law, Obamacare, is at the center of this. But this Tea Party group in Congress has shown time and time again that compromise is not something they're really interested in. They kind of want to force their views on as many people as possible, and that leads to these political sort of crises that we've seen.
How does the U.S. government look in the face of a shutdown when we talk about the global media, global audience?
I've been interviewing some experts here in Washington who keep tabs on the international community and how we look, and it's not great. I mean, we're looking as though we just simply cannot pay our own bills, we can't get our house in order, and yet, as we know, traditionally the United States has no problem going around the world sort of suggesting to other countries how they might want to do business. So it's not going to be great for our worldwide reputation. It's also not great for our economy. World banks, other governments are going to look at our economy maybe and wonder if it's as stable as it used to be in terms of investment and other issues like that. So it could have far-reaching implications, particularly since I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. I think this political sort of confrontation is going to come up again and again. The leverage Republicans have is on the budget and on the debt ceiling, and they're not going to let that go.
But Jim, it's a pretty scary thing that you just said, that, this is not ending. What do you mean by that?
Look, the country is separate, it's polarized. The Republicans come from safe congressional seats, so do the Democrats. So the middle, that compromise ground that the country used to be able to appeal to both parties to come together on, it's just not there as much as it used to be. And I'm afraid this polarized politics is what we're going to see moving forward.
Okay, let's see how that goes. Thank you so much for joining us, VOA National Correspondent Jim Malone.
Pleasure.
We're taking a break. When we return, fighting the illegal wildlife trade. You're watching On Assignment. Thai and American officials have reported progress in their effort to curb illegal wildlife trafficking, but they say the problem is growing because of increased demand for endangered animals and their money-making parts.
Thai authorities say Thailand is being used as a transshipment point, especially for ivory. I spoke with VOA correspondent in Bangkok, Steve Herman, and asked him about Thailand's role in this global trade.
Thailand not only has a number of desirable animals for traffickers, it is also a major transshipment point. We hear cases all the time being busted at the international airport in Bangkok. These endangered animals seized by authorities in Thailand were taken from their natural habitats and snared in what has become a multi-billion-dollar illicit business. So stuff is not only originating from Thailand, but also coming through Thailand. Not only live animals, but also things such as elephant tusks. And a single tusk can be worth many thousands of dollars for the ivory, obviously.
Now, Steve, the U.S. official you interviewed was very clear in his statement that wildlife traffickers are criminals that need to be prosecuted.
Investigate, arrest, prosecute, and incarcerate those who commit crimes, and illegal wildlife traffickers are definitely criminals.
Is that happening?
Yes, it is to some degree. This is not just some small-time smuggling operation going on. It is considered organized crime. But even pursuing a regional solution in Southeast Asia is proving to be a big challenge. The kingpins of the trafficking have proven to be untouchable so far. Honest officers say they are stymied by corrupt counterparts and a lack of sharing of intelligence among different agencies, let alone across borders. And because there's so much money involved, it's very lucrative. There are also law enforcement officers, the same officers that are supposed to be arresting these people are in cahoots sometimes in various countries with the criminals. And it is a very big business with an increasing demand in part from wealthier customers in Asia and notably China.
Can you tell us a little bit more about who's actually getting these animals, where they're going, what's sort of their trajectory, where did they come from, and what's their end point?
Endangered animals are trafficked to satisfy a number of markets. A big one, of course, is traditional medicine, such as Chinese medicine. There's people that like to eat the flesh of certain endangered animals. And of course, some of these are sold as exotic pets, such as reptiles and birds. And there's also the sale of exotic animal species here in Thailand for use in the tourism industry. And
what happens to these animals once they're rescued?
Well, as far as we know, a lot of them are being kept in captivity because they may be evidence in a court case. And some of them eventually may end up in zoos, but zoos, of course, can be another problem in the developing world. I'm not familiar really whether there's some sort of adoption system because these are endangered species and private individuals are not supposed to be having them, especially as pets.
And our thanks again to VOA's Steve Herman. Steve says, by the way, that Thai authorities project that they will seize some 20,000 illegally traded animals this year.
Moving on to films, two new independent films, one by an Afghan woman director and the other by Saudi Arabia's first female filmmaker, look at gender relations in traditional societies.
Though very different in style, both films examine women's lives in gender-segregated communities. VOA entertainment reporter Penelope Pulu talked about the films and their focus with On Assignment's Rebecca Ward.
I was trying to get to the bottom of it. What is it that creates unequal relationship puts women in a second place.
The young woman in Atiq Rahimi's film, The Patient's Stone, pours out her heart to her comatose husband about years of emotional neglect and abuse. Afghan activist Hosai Wardak says Rahimi paints an accurate picture of the typical Afghan loveless marriage and family relations in male-dominated societies like Afghanistan.
Marriage tend to be a relation where it's more of being able to produce babies and to expand families.
Hosai Wardak, who is an Afghan, actually mentioned that there are not many women who learn the Quran or who are allowed to interpret the Quran independently. And the interpretation of the holy book for them comes from men. So the traditionalism is perpetuated. That's the common thread you see in both films.
سلام همشهره. آماده این برای دعاخوانی؟
نه روز نه.
چرا؟
پاک نیستم. از دیروز سرناشو هستم.
چی؟
سرناشوی. چتل هستم.
انت احلى واحدة شفتها بحياتي. وبيبي باقي في قلبي لما اشوفك بالفستان الاحمر.
لا تشيلين هم. مستحيل انه يحرق قلبي ويتزوج واحدة ثانية.
Another common thread that you find in both, which is very interesting, is the way women themselves perpetuate sometimes this traditionalism.
وبعدين إذا ركبتي سيكل ما تقدرين تحملينه ولا تجيبين عيال.
نمیدونی چی کارایی نکردم تا الهیم نکنی. وقتی دید شکمدار نمیشم تو را مجبور میکرد یک زن دوم بگیری.
Do you think that the filmmakers of both these films believe that films like this can eventually change the society that these films are based on?
I don't think any filmmaker will tell you that he or she started a film single-mindedly by planning to change a society. But I think there is hardly ever any important and serious film that addresses controversial issues that doesn't.
I tried to make a film that is about life and about the love of life, not giving up. It's about persistence and for the power of dreaming. And I think that in the Middle East we need films like this.
The interesting thing is that Gov't will not show in Saudi Arabia at this point because there are no movie theaters there yet. This is how pioneer Haifa al-Mansour is in her skill. However, they will show on YouTube.
Now, the Afghan film, will it be shown in Afghanistan?
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
But it is not in English.
No, it's in Dari.
How was the book received?
It is considered a controversial book because it contains also things that even attack some of the premises of the Quran, the Islamic religion, or how it is received. So it is not a book that the Afghan establishment would approve of.
لا حول ولا بیشرم بیایو چی میگی تو؟ بدن تو شرم نداری که چی میگی؟
از چی؟
اون از چیزی که میگی؟
چیزی که میگم یا چیزی که میکنم.
امروز ما زبان بازی نکو. فهمیدی؟ مسلمان هستی یا نه؟
مسلمان برای چی؟
اینم یا سانسور میشی میفهمی یعنی من میکشمت خودم میکشمت.
As a woman, your impression of these films. I mean, how did you feel when you saw each one of them?
Oh my God, pain, a lot of pain. The first one hurt me on the level of humanity and made me indignant. The second hurt me because reminded me of my childhood. I remember how a bike for me was an integral part of my life. I was on a bike all the time. And to see this 10-year-old that reminded me so much of myself, struggling to get something that should be given. I have to admit, I cried all the way. All the way.
And thanks again to Penelope. Now, gender relations and equality, obviously a major topic in many areas of the world, Imran. And it's interesting, in the world of sports, for example, men and women do sometimes compete together, but almost never in rugged American-style football. But of course, I did say almost never, because at one U.S. high school, 3 girls have joined the typically male-dominated sport.
And VOA's Tala Hadavi, herself no stranger to tough sports, went to the suburban Washington school to find out more about the girls and their unusual pursuit.
It's that time of the year. Football season is in full swing. But the high school football team at T.C. Williams is a bit different than most.
I'm ready. Another season. First season. First and last season. That's so sad.
They have Brianna, Tiffany, and Josie on the team.
All right. At the end of the play,
Coach Dennis Randolph says the unusual request was not a problem.
about 25 girls that have said, you know, hey, we want to play football, and I said, well, come on out, you know, but they don't show up because it's really it's not for everybody. You know, it takes a special person to come out here and play football, and you know, Tiffany and Brianna and Josie are atypical.
Brianna is a kicker. She's about to start her third year on the team. She used to play soccer, but when her father asked her to try football, she had her doubts.
Honestly, I ask myself that every day. I'm just like, why did I decide to play a guy's sport? But it kind of just grew on me. And then after I made that first field goal, I just knew that it was my sport.
Today is just a preseason game against the local Virginia team. And although Brianna is a backup to her male teammate, on this day she gets several chances to show how she's improved over the summer. At halftime, everyone is in the locker room.
I mean, we don't treat them any differently than we would if they were just a guy. So, I mean, when I found out, I was like, whoa, a girl can play football? So, I mean, you just adapting, and it's nothing really big.
Brianna's father is a football coach for a local college team and makes sure to be on the sidelines to give his daughters pointers throughout the games. He says her audacity inspires others.
Male and females will see a lot in her because she'll be able to say to them, hey, if I'm a female and I can play football, anything that you choose to do in life, of course, you can do it too. All you have to do is be committed, work hard, be disciplined.
Honestly, when I'm older, I would just like to say, like, oh yeah, I did that. I finally can say that, like, I finished my high school seasons and I completed something that a normal girl wouldn't do. And just to tell people that I've actually done something like that is just amazing.
Brianna's dream is to play football in college. She has the next 2 years to attract college coaches' attention. For now, though, it's all about T.C. Williams, winning and getting a chance to compete. From T.C. Williams High School in Alexandria, Virginia, Tala Hadavi for VOA News.
You know, Imran, those are some pretty impressive girls playing for their school's football team, and it's not in a powder puff game, which is what they typically call games when girls play a traditionally boys' sport.
Powder puff is like Powerpuff Girls, but
I don't like powder puff.
I think that girls are tough, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to demonstrate a little bit of that right now?
Yeah, well, you know, I was thinking, you know, we could take it up a little notch ourselves, and I could challenge you
to a wrestling
as a female
match.
Myself to an arm wrestling.
Yeah, come
match.
on, let's do a real wrestling match. Okay.
Come on, let's
okay.
bring it
okay.
in.
You be the judge, audience. Okay.
Elbow down.
Okay.
You can't have this
Hey,
elbow.
you're cheating.
Okay. No, this is good.
All
I'm
right.
just getting stable.
1, 2, and oh, you win. All right, girl power.
That's
rules.
not a surprise. All right, well, with that, we've come to the end of our show. Be sure to follow On Assignment, always available on voanews.com as well as Facebook and YouTube.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hope to catch you again next week. Thank you so much for watching On Assignment.